Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I am once again your humble guide, Andy Curtis. And this past week was a big week for us outdoor enthusiasts. For you skiers out there, Big Sky Ski Resort is working on a new addition that is sure to be a crowd pleaser next season. For you anglers, right about now is the time of the year that we all need to get our boats checked for aquatic invasive species to help stop their spread across the state. We'll see how Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks is doing that. And for you shed hunters, this past week was like Christmas and Black Friday all rolled into one, because at high noon on Monday, May 15th, our wildlife management areas opened their gates for the season. And this year, for the very first time, a new WMA here in the state is now available for us all to enjoy, and it opens up 100,000 acres of our public land back to us. MTN's Ryan Gamboa starts things off there.
100,000 acres at a bird's eye view.
The gate for shed hunters today. That's exactly what they're raising in for. Okay, cool.
Governor Greg Gianforte flown high above the big snowy mountains.
WMA, this is BLM, and then the top part is the Forest Service, all the snowy stuff. No. And old logging roads.
To get a grasp of the sheer beauty of Montana's newest wildlife management area.
Where those outhouses are? Yep. This starts the WMA right there. Okay, this is beautiful country here. Yep.
On the ground, shed hunters galore.
We have such a beautiful state and so much outdoor activities that we can at our fingertips, right? And so having this public land and allowing us to access the national forest from here is fantastic.
Big Snowy Mountains WMA, formerly a family ranch, was a gift from Forrest Allen to Chaudere Children's Hospital in Helena.
The process took about 3 years. I'm not going to lie. It was challenging at times, and you have to definitely have a lot of patience. Today, driving here, it just felt weird because I've driven this road many times and I haven't hardly seen a vehicle. And then all of a sudden you see all these vehicles and it's like, this is real now.
A long process has become a long-time gift for Montanans.
We created a brand new WMA for Montanans, and this 5,600 acres is important, but as and more important is the 100,000 acres of public land behind here that we now have access through Mr. Allen's generosity.
It took a village to get to this point. Numerous organizations and state departments. For Montana's indigenous tribes, it's a chance to get closer to the land they call home.
The Crow people call these mountains a Wakam Hawadish, and that means like the lone mountain, because maybe they see it as like a safe haven out here, kind of out by itself. So Crows, we believe in wish making, the power of making wishes, and we ask for good things. So I'll make a wish that people who pass through here will fare well and good things will happen to them for being in this good country.
A long time ago, there used to be trails that we'd use to go raid other tribes. But if you look through these mountains, I'm sure you're going to find old war lodges to where they hide during the day.
On a momentous day from May 15th to December 1st each year.
I think it's really important that all of Montana has access to all of our land.
Montanans will remember the legacy Forrest Allen left in Montana.
I'm thinking Forrest is sitting back thinking, you know what? I gave this gift to an organization and they did the right thing by giving it back to Montanans.
In the Big Snowy Mountains, Ryan Gamboa, MTN News.
And if you've been in this state more than a day, you probably already know that you don't have to go out to a wildlife management area to see and appreciate some of our wildlife. You can really do it in your own backyard, even in town. In this next story, MTN's Chet Lehman shows us how you can make your property a little more wildlife friendly.
Hear that? Is there any better reminder that it's spring than that? Let's face it, you're happy it's spring, and so are the wild animals around us.
Some things that people can do to make their home, make their
their property friendly to wildlife. Birds don't need bird feeders this time of year. They can forage naturally. And taking bird feeders down this time of year also, reduces crowding for birds and reduces spread of disease.
Let's face it, birds have been finding food for a lot longer than you've been putting it out for them. Your biggest chance for helping? Providing space.
One of the things that you can do is plant native shrubs and trees. They provide kind of the best habitat to encourage birds to come to your place. Big trees like these, spruces and firs make great bird habitat, and they also provide cover and food for them as well.
And it's not just about birds. Little furry creatures and potentially big furry creatures and others may like to hang around. Some of them are okay, some not so much.
So, some big things to keep in mind is, one, reduce artificial attractants. So that includes artificially feeding wildlife. Keeping pets from harassing wildlife will help encourage more wildlife to use your place in a healthy way and move naturally.
So in a nutshell, keeping it wild for Montana's wildlife. In Bozeman, Chet Lehman, MTN News.
Now, I am far from an expert, but if you're asking my humble opinion, the weather out there right now is almost perfect. But before too long, it's going to get a lot hotter and a lot drier all across the state, leading to what I'm sure is going to be another very active fire season. But recently, officials gathered in the state capitol to try to get a game plan together before the state goes up in flames. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has our story.
While we're still very early in the season, leaders say they're already well on their way to getting ready for wildfires here in Montana.
All in all, I think we're in good shape. We'll just see what Mother Nature does to us, and we can hope for the best.
Agencies from Montana DNRC to the U.S. Forest Service to local fire chiefs were at the state capitol Tuesday to deliver their annual briefing to Governor Greg Gianforte ahead of the start of wildfire season. Gianforte again urged leaders to commit to aggressive attack, putting resources into fighting fires early when it's safe to do so, to try to keep them small. DNRC is seeking to fill just over 100 seasonal firefighting positions this year, and about 80% have already been hired. The state has increased the starting wage to $17.55 an hour this year.
If folks are still interested in a summer job fighting wildland fire, now's the time to get their application in, as only a few jobs, positions are left open there.
The Montana National Guard will make soldiers and airmen available if needed, including more than 300 ready with Red Card certifications to support wildfire response. Forest Service leaders say they've worked on increasing their own firefighter pay, and they've had success in hiring. All the agencies in attendance said cooperation remains key.
While we are looking forward into 2023 and what the season will bring, and we have our predictions, regardless, we are ready. And we are prepared to work with you, Governor, and with the state and all our federal agencies and tribes to really work across and meet the needs on the ground when it comes to wildfire suppression.
May is also Wildfire Awareness Month, and leaders are calling on the public to be thinking about getting ready.
And so we'd ask homeowners and landowners to start taking a look at their property to ensure they're minimizing the vulnerability to wildfire risk that they may face at location.
Leaders are encouraging the public to visit mtfireinfo.org, where you can find more details about how to be prepared for and prevent wildfires in the state. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
So in preparation of the upcoming fire season, we turn to our MTN Outdoors trivia question of the week, and it is a hot one. All right, so here we go. According to mtfire.org, as we get a lot drier, lawn and farm equipment even can cause wildfires to become more common. With just one small spark from a lawnmower blade hitting a rock, that can potentially ignite dry grass, causing big problems. So to help prevent this, it's recommended to do as much yard work as you can around the house. What time of the day? Is it A, around 10 a.m., B, around 1 p.m., or C, around 4 p.m.? Let that thought grow on you a little bit, and we'll have your answer when we come back.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Hey, welcome back everybody to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. Thanks for sticking around with us here today. Now, before the break, I asked you this week's MTN Outdoors trivia question, and I know it doesn't feel like it out there right now, but before too long, we'll be in the middle of another fire season here in Montana. So if you missed this important question, here it is one more time. According to mtfire.org, as we get a lot drier, lawn and farm equipment caused wildfires become more common. For example, just one small spark from a lawnmower blade hitting a rock can potentially ignite dry grass. So to help prevent this, it's recommended that you do as much yard work as you can around what time of the day? A, 10 a.m., B, 1 p.m., C, 4 p.m. Now, if you're an early bird and you answered 10 a.m., you are absolutely right. It's recommended that you try to do as much work like clearing grass or mowing as early as you can. After 10 a.m., the temperature starts to rise, the humidity drops, and the winds typically pick up. A real recipe for disaster if a fire sparks. Plus, you know, it's just nice to get all that stuff out of the way as early in the day as possible. Am I right? And another thing that we have to be very careful about as we get closer to summer is stopping the spread of aquatic invasive species. MTN's Sam Hoyle takes us to an FWP check station and has our story.
Boating season is upon us here in Montana, and if you're breaking out your boat for the first time, or maybe you've got a new one this year, stopping at check stations for aquatic invasive species is mandatory in Montana, especially if you're traveling to various waterways across this great state.
We're looking for plants, animals, mud, standing water. We do bait, look for that because they can have viruses and stuff like that, and fish moving around we don't want. So that's the point of the watercraft inspections, is to make sure that we're not moving AIS around.
Crete did note that this year there have been fewer boats so far, but they are catching more watercraft moving aquatic invasive species around. And with the peak season still to come, FWP expects check stations to be busy this summer.
Main boating season is coming up on us through that first week of September, and it's going to start getting real busy. We see around 120,000 inspections a year in Montana. So it is starting to ramp up, especially with weather like this. People are going to be getting out and about.
And while the main reason for the check stations is to look for invasive species, inspectors are also there to help educate boaters on the negative effects they can have on Montana waterways.
I did find myself my own muscle boat last year. It was actually one of the first boats that I got to inspect. So it was really cool to be able to interact with the boater and educate them on these and why we do this program to be able to protect our waterways.
As for how long you should expect to wait at a check station when traveling, Crete says it depends, but if boaters are prepared to be inspected, it goes a long way towards getting the line moving quickly.
If they're dirty and we have to clean them in order to properly inspect them, then that starts adding time. But if people come in and they know to pull their covers, get their live wells open, their boats are clean when they get here, the inspection process is going to be very quick.
Just outside of Helena, Sam Hoyle, MTN News.
And this pair of mining city adventurers that we're about to meet will probably have to check their boat a couple of times over the next 2 months. MTN's John Shear introduces us to a modern-day Lewis and Clark.
A journey of over 1,200 miles begins with the single stroke of a paddle. And these canoeists will be doing plenty of paddling as they travel from Butte all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
We'll rock off this edge. Thank you guys so much.
Excited. We're really excited to get going. We got quite the journey coming up.
A journey through the Columbia River watershed that's likely to take Robert Lester and his cousin Braxton Mitchell 40 to 60 days to complete. It's a journey this Butte adventurer has wanted to take since he was a child.
And I originally had wanted to canoe to the opposite coast, to the long way, and I figured I better do the short way first.
The journey starts at Silverbow Creek on Butte's west end and goes along the Clark Fork River to the Pend Oreille River, going a little bit into Canada before connecting to the Columbia River and taking it all the way to the Washington coast.
The most strenuous part is going to be along a lot of the dams and some of the harder sections of the river. We're actually going to have to carry the canoe around those sections.
Family of the canoers are confident the pair will be able to handle the long journey.
He can handle it. He's researched everything for months and months and planned the route and every aspect of it and safety-wise, and I'm not worried at all.
I mean, there's always a danger with stuff like this, but they're both young and strong, and they should do fine.
Lester is doing this trip to bring attention to the Columbia River watershed and the importance of preserving it.
Talking about what the future of the entire watershed could look like. You know, a lot of people don't know that what we put in here behind us ends up all the way in the Pacific Ocean down by Portland.
And he hopes to touch that ocean 2 months from now.
If you prepare ahead of time as best as you can, it's always better, you know? Prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
In Butte, John Amy, MTN News.
Well, high water levels might be good for those guys, but I am willing to guess that there's a few people here in the Helena Valley that really don't want to see a lot more water coming their way. MTN's Tom Buchanan is about to show us what our officials are doing to plan for any potential flooding and how you can be prepared.
Increased snowmelt and rain has raised the water levels at Prickly Pear and 10 Mile Creek. Local emergency officials are keeping a watch for flooding and helped explain how residents concerned of possible flooding should prepare.
As you can see, down at 10 Mile Creek, the water has risen as of late. And according to this hydrograph from NOAA, the creek's water level dipped into the action category.
And so that's kind of the trigger point where you start seeing information being released about those particular creeks or streams in the area.
Thankfully, water levels for 10 Mile are looking promising during the next week and for the rest of May. Additionally, no snow remains on the valley floor.
10 Mile Creek is seeing a drop from the weekend, which is good. You'll see some scattered thunderstorms and, generally some storms moving through the area, but the precipitation will be minimal and the creeks will continue to start dropping, even though, they peaked over the weekend and people probably saw some pretty high water.
That outcome is only a prediction, though, and doesn't cover what may happen in June. And of Prickly Pear Creek, McNamee says those levels are harder to predict. In case of flooding, there are a few things residents can do to prepare, such as signing up for DES alerts.
I always recommend signing up for emergency alerts, only because that is the major way that we get a hold of people in an emergency.
Additionally, folks can keep important documents on hand, keep extra water on hand, know evacuation routes, and utilize proper sandbag placement.
Reporting in Helena, Tom Buchanan, MTN News.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors, and thanks for spending some time with me. I know this warmer weather has felt great, especially after that historically cold winter. But there is a downside. MTN Outdoors meteorologist Curtis Grevenitz will show us how our snowpack is looking following a stretch of some 80-degree days.
A lot can change here in a week. After most of April was cold and snowy with winter seemingly never ending, a significant warm-up with temperatures in the 70s and the 80s spread across Montana for the first week of May. And what was a healthy mountain snowpack turned into a bit of a deficit for parts of the state for this time of year. Southwest and central Montana snowpack is still close to average, if not above average, but most areas along the Continental Divide and west of the Divide are now below average. The prolonged warm-up created a significant runoff of water. An area just north of Lincoln saw a decrease of nearly 8 inches of snow water equivalent in just a week, which is a lot. Most of Montana and the Northern Rockies saw several inches of water equivalent melt out of the mountain snow. Soil moisture across most of Montana is still in pretty good shape. South of Big Sky Country, a tremendous amount of snow still covers the mountains throughout most of the west. But for Montana, this is not cause to hit the panic button just yet, rather something to watch heading towards fire season. Seasonal water supply forecasts are lowest in northwest Montana, where they range from 60 to 90% of normal. Southwest and central Montana forecasts range from 100% to 140% of normal. And now, you're a little more weather-wise.
And when the temperatures eventually start to drop again and that snow begins to fly again all across the state, we can look forward to a new addition up at Big Sky Ski Resort. MTN's Kristen Merkel made the climb and shows us what we can look forward to next season on the slopes.
I'm here at the top of Lone Peak where construction is underway for the new tram, and as you can see, construction workers are hard at work right behind me, and it is set to open in time for next year's opening day.
Just really excited to see this, and I want to make sure I don't mess it up, so get this thing open by Thanksgiving.
The original Big Sky tram was built in 1995. The new tram construction is the first new tram being built in the United States since 2008. Project manager Yash Rosinski says working on this project means a great deal to him.
Definitely a dream job. I had no idea that it was since 2008 that the tram hasn't been built here, so I knew I was lucky, but I didn't know I was that lucky.
Lone Peak is the highest scenic overlook in Montana. The new tram will have larger cabins for both skiers and scenic rides. The new tram will add 600 vertical feet to the ride, and you can expect to reach the peak in under 4 minutes. A gondola will later be added for non-skiers to be able to leave from Mountain Village to the peak.
Where we're standing exactly right now will be the eventual loading platform. So standing right behind the camera is where the cabins will come up.
Vice President of Construction Chad Wilson says a big project like this doesn't come without challenges.
Some of the challenges, of course, are resources. There's not a whole lot of people that know how to build trams just sitting around looking for jobs, right? So that's obviously a big challenge. Also, too, like the geotechnical aspect of it and figuring out where a foundation can be set was super challenging.
Weather is also a great challenge when getting supplies up to the peak.
They were flying this morning. They got, I think, 2 or 3 laps in, and then we got socked in here, and that's it until the weather clears. So we try to get as much material up here as we can so that when the weather does change, we still have work to do.
The tram will operate this 2023-2024 ski season without an enclosure at the top. The following year is when that will be finished with new scenic additions.
There'll be a glass viewing platform
Walk out on it
with a glass floor that you can kind of overlook the big couloir.
Stick with MTN News as we follow the progress of the new tram, which is sure to shape the future of high-altitude outdoor recreation in southwest Montana. In Big Sky, Kristen Merkel, MTN News.
Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and remember, keep those photos and videos coming to me at andy.curtis@ktvh.com. And until next week, stay safe, and I'll see you out there.